Hello, friends and brothers. This is Dennis Yates with Masonic Improvement, and we are with the one, the only, well, the several, the many inner circle members. I'm glad you guys made it tonight. Um, I wanted to bring a little bit of balance to us. I mean, we had a great discussion last week with Esoterica chapter 5, uh, and I it really got me to thinking that we do a lot of these lives, and lately, because it's been installation season, we've been talking heavily about the lodge and different administrative stuff and things like that. So let's balance it out a little bit tonight. And because I think our viewers not only watch us for that kind of stuff, but we have viewers out there that are interested in the esoteric nature of Freemasonry. And while we're not going to divulge any secrets within the degrees or anything like that on this show, um, there are certain concepts that we can talk about freely, um, as free thinking men that happen to be a part of a fraternity. I mean, that's what Freemasons are. We're free thinking men. We believe in freedom of thought, freedom of faith, and I typically say freedom of religion, but I say freedom of faith, and freedom of interpretation. We are free to be who we feel we are meant to be in this world, and we are all working towards finding that closest, getting back to um, that closeness with our maker. And and I think Freemasonry is the perfect place for that, for many different men of faith, and we can find that common ground amongst each other. So tonight we're going to start. um, One of the brothers here is going to, Brother Atcher is going to read a a piece of passage for us, and the reason why is because it mentions one of our working tools within Freemasonry. And then the brothers are just going to go round robin and just start talking about different characteristics of what that can mean. And it doesn't have to be what the book says it means. It doesn't have to be what you think the Bible says it should mean. It can be whatever you think um, it could allude to, because ultimately that's our job, right? Is to look at different things and listen to, read other books, listen to other people, and then come up with our own conclusions. And so, with something that you might say in a conclusion that you have, may just happen to help somebody else have that aha moment. And that is so important, um, not only within our fraternity, but I think it's very important in this group of men right here, because that's what we're looking for. Iron sharpens iron, and we want to become the best human beings that we can be on this planet. And I think that we do a good job practicing that. So we're going to get started. Um, Hello, Les Montgomery. Glad you made it. Uh, Dennis Pedretti, a prospect from Indiana Lodge. Nice, nice. Um, Glad that you guys are on. So we're going to kick this thing off. Uh, Brother Atcher, if you will go ahead and read that passage, and then whoever wants to jump in first, go ahead. And y'all all know the rules of conduct in our space. Don't give me a reason to talk over everybody, because I'll just talk forever. All right. So, anyways, uh, kick it off, Brother Atcher.
Thus he shewed me, and behold, the Lord stood upon a wall made by a plumb line, with a plumb line in his hand. And the Lord said unto me, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, A plumb line. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will set a plumb line in the midst of my people Israel. I will not again pass by them anymore.
Who's going to start this off? Come on.
I'll go ahead and take a stab at it real quick.
There we go. All right. I'm going to jump out for a minute and I'll be right back. I'll be
All right.
listening though.
So the verse again says, hang on, now let me get it back into my face so that I can actually see it. Okay. This is what he showed me. Behold, the Lord was standing beside a wall built with a plumb line in his hand. And this is all I want to talk about. It's just the first part of this. So I find it significant that the writer of this particular book felt it necessary to phrase this in this manner. Thus he showed me, or in some shewed me. Behold, the Lord standing beside, in my version, I've heard others that say atop a wall built with a plumb line, holding a plumb line. So that suggests to me that he is checking the wall. He is looking to make certain that it has remained as it was when it was built, straight and upright. So how do we apply that to ourselves? Is that by chance or by design, an admonishment that we as individuals should remain in that upright mode, in that straight position, that honest position that we were built. You know, we're innocent from birth. And, until we figure out how to sin, we remain innocent. I think that that's what the first part of this passage is telling us, is that state of innocence, and I'm not certain that that is the correct word, that state of uprightness, and I do equate the two, is where we should strive to remain, to not allow ourselves to be slanted by current events, politics, environment, whatever. We need to struggle, work towards remaining upright individuals. So I'll let somebody else tackle the second verse there.
I think, Brother Weber, I think you're pretty well spot on with that. I would only add another thing that I take out of that first part is that we're all called as individuals to identify the chief good in our Creator, the knowledge of knowing our Creator, whoever that may be or whatever that may be. And that is the benchmark which we can set for our uprightness, to call that our plumb, and set that as our guide for marking that uprightness. And then the second part continues to where the Lord tells Amos that I will set a plumb line in the midst of my people Israel. That is in my opinion, that's where we're seeing a foreshadowing of everybody being called to be that plumb line, everybody being called to exhibit that uprightness, and really have that be the chief goal, to compare yourself to how well you're doing day to day, not to compare yourself to others, but to set yourself against that benchmark of your Creator's plumb line.
So one of the things I looked at, I mean, I know what a plumb plumb line is. But just for those that don't, I just looked up the Google definition of what a plumb line is. So a plumb line is a simple tool made of a cord with a pointed weight called a plumb bob attached to the end. When suspended freely, gravity pulls the cord into a perfectly straight line. Builders use it to determine whether a wall, post, or other structure is truly upright rather than leaning. Okay, so that's just in practical terms. That's the symbolism that's being used here. So a couple of things that I thought about is it said and I said thus says the Lord, behold, I will set a plumb line in the midst of my people Israel. So first off, it's basically God referring to himself in that he is what he's basically saying is that he is the standard by which you are to set your conduct. I will set a plumb line. Nothing else. It's I am setting the standard by which you are to follow, right? And he said, I will set the plumb line in the midst of my people. He's not talking about like he's physically going to set a plumb line in the center of Israel. What he's saying is that in your heart, in your soul, he is going to set a plumb line. You are going to know, basically right from wrong within yourself, and that's what you're striving for. It kind of reminds me of there. If you look back in history, especially when you talk about the use of the compasses, there are several esoteric or religious imagery where the compasses are being used. And when we say you circumscribe your desires, well, the person or entity holding that compasses is the divine or God or the creator or whatever, and he is holding the compasses. He is setting what is to be your what you are to circumscribe your desires through is him, not yourself, but something greater than yourself. So when he's saying, I will set a plumb line in the midst of my people Israel, he's basically saying this is the standard that you are to follow. And then I will not again pass by them anymore. In other words, you now know what to do. I'm not going to come back and show you this plumb line again and show you what you're supposed to do. You now have to take responsibility. So what, if you don't live up to that standard, there will be consequences after that. In other words, it's not going to constantly come back and remind you, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be doing. It's like, what you were supposed to do. Now you need to go and live that way. And if you don't live that way, then there'll be consequences. So
You mean
that's a few things
I don't get a get out of jail free card by following and setting myself against one of the preachers that I watch on TV or one of the many that are in prison
I didn't
right
see the
now.
plumb line.
I don't get to set my standards by
I didn't
that.
get that email. I missed that text.
And it goes right back to what Byron was saying at the beginning, which I really like that he caught on to that, is that we start out perfect already. We are already perfect emanations of God, and then we come into this form and do what we're doing here on earth. But ultimately, that is the plumb line. That's the beginning. That's it even states in a different part of the Bible, and I'll use this because it's easier for me to reference than because I grew up with it. But they say have faith like a child. You have a child's faith. Why is that? That's because it's so pure and true, and that's what the plumb line represents, is that purity and truth in God's measure, not our measure, not our pastor's measure, not anybody else's measure, in God's measure. That's why it's up to us, and it's our duty, especially as we become intelligent members of this thing called life, to seek out those divine truths that just cannot be squashed. There's no, you're not going to see some YouTube video 10 years down the road saying, oh, it was all a lie. No, there are specific, there are some real godly truths out there that no one can deny. I don't care who they are. Go ahead, Tom. Don't tell me that was an accident, Tom. If that microphone goes red, I'll be upset. There you are.
There he is.
No, it was an accident. I don't know why it went
And
went
now
off.
you're
I
in
thought
it.
I had it shut off. I'm just gonna step back for a second.
All right.
Well, I'd like to expand on something you just said, Dennis. And it's not, I don't think there's any great, earth shattering anything in it, but I can, when you said, absolute truths, it reminded me of a way that I used to have of speaking, where when when I felt like I was sharing with someone or hearing from someone one of those absolutes, I thought of it in my head, and the physical motion I made was this, meaning capital T, truth, not a little t, but the capital T. And that's, I think, what we're all striving to find throughout our daily lives and apply to our daily lives, is these capital T truths, those absolute truths that that we find through experience, research, any number of different ways. But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to share that little bit.
Well, and one other thing that I noticed is, um, so you could look at, especially in the second verse, he said, "And the Lord saith unto me, Amos, what seest thou?" And he said, "Well, it's a plumb line." And the idea is that, when you get introduced mostly initially to these symbols, you only really see the symbol itself, right? We get introduced to the square, the compasses, and the ashlars and stuff like that, but initially all we see is that symbol itself. So initially Amos says, well, you're holding a plumb line. And basically, God is saying you need to look beyond what this physical symbol is and what it represents. In other words, it's an initiatic journey. It's the same thing that we do with all of our symbols. We get introduced to them, and even initially we often look in our degrees, for the moral lessons, but and so there is some explanation behind those symbols, but then as you go further, you learn that there are either additional meanings. So God is saying you need to look beyond what is just right there in front of you and look and see what else this could teach you. So he says, I will set a plumb line in the midst of my people, Israel. In other words, this is not just for measuring walls or making sure that they lean. This is something you need to learn and live by.
And I absolutely agree with that. And I think that the point of of God putting it there and also not explaining any part of it, just putting it there is saying, yeah, that's him saying, or that's God saying. I'm not going to say it's him or she or whatever. It's because it's both, but that's God saying that, look, I'm dropping the gauntlet here. This is it. This is what I want you to contemplate. I'm not going to tell you what you should be learning from this. And and I think that's extremely important for us to remember along our journey, because it seems like that's the whole purpose of what we're here for, right? Is to try to figure everything out as we go from the very beginning. We can't speak, we can't talk. We have to develop our senses. They develop over time, I mean, and then we develop our abilities over time, and we do that through learning and from contemplation of those things that we've learned, and then putting it into practice. And I think this is just another excellent example of um, one of those truths that, it's going to be set down, but it's not going to be said exactly what it is that we're supposed to be learning from this.
Well, and he says, "I will not again pass by them anymore." And to me, it's, okay. So this is God saying, "Look, I'm not going to continually come back and remind you of what you're supposed to do. I'm not going to spoon feed this to you. You know what it is, and I've told you you need to, learn more." And you can expand that to, um, the lodge itself and to Masons. If you're sitting back and expecting, if you're sitting in lodge and you're like, well, I'm just not learning anything, they're just not teaching me anything, I'm just, well, you know what? We're not going to sit there and continuously come back and spoon feed you every little thing. You know what I mean? You're going to have to, learn and study and research some of this, a lot of this stuff yourself. Like this is, um, you know, the the lodge itself is, where whereas some of us, myself, Dennis, some of the others, we bring in speakers, we try and have educational opportunities and stuff like that, but ultimately, there's only so much that we can do. And we cannot just sit there and continuously spoon feed and say, and and just have guys expect that this just going to be given to all them. You're going to have to work for them. I will not again pass by them anymore. You've been given the path to follow. You have got to follow. So.
I agree. I like it. I like it a lot. Anybody else got anything on that?
I could go.
Go for it.
Um, I love everything that everyone said. It all makes perfect sense to me. It's a great working tool within our craft. But I was contemplating a little deeper. I don't think I've ever heard of this before. I never even thought of it before until you brought this up tonight, this topic up tonight. But the plumb itself, uprightness, we Masons, that's what we are. But what about the line, the plumb line? Uh, Maybe we are upright to the earth, and that line is leading us directly to God, the heavens. It's a symbolically, you could look at it as that, where we're grounded on earth, we're the plumb, but without that line, without that straight, direct path to God, the heavens, the great architect of the universe, that plumb would just fall over. Having that line attached is what causes the plumb to be effective. Having that line to God, to the divine, is what causes the uprightness. Without that line, we could just be a piece of metal laying there. So, again, symbolically, just further contemplating makes sense to me.
When you brought that up, it made me well, and I was kind of thinking it before anyways, but I immediately, when you talked about being grounded and having that straight line up, um I thought of the lotus flower within, and how, you know, we're that symbolism in itself is the exact same thing. You've got your grounding down in your bowels, and then it goes, you know, up, straight up. I mean, there's no twists and turns and all that kind of stuff. It's straight up and balanced, and and it shows you the direct path to the divine nature.
To the divine. That's it. I
Yeah,
like it. I
yeah.
like it.
I love the representation there, and I think that the plumb line is another nice addition to that. You know, one thing that I was jotting some stuff down. I'm doing a a talk at a couple of different festive boards here this month and next month, and I was thinking about writing very similar things, um, and I was going to add this part in there. You know, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. You know, give y'all can give me some ideas on some of the ways I'm going to take this talk, and you know, I don't. It's not going to be real deep or what have you, but there's different points I want to touch. But you know what's the difference between right and righteous? And we've already said it basically. And I'm wondering if any of y'all can jump on that bandwagon right away.
What is righteous based on? Your faith or someone else's faith? Or, I mean, I'm just throwing that out as a question to start where you're starting with righteous.
So so in my mind, what there's only one real righteous, right? We can have some righteousness in us, but we're not righteous, right? Because the only what the difference is between righteous and right is the divine truth. So you can be right in any conversation. Just by building up your intellect, you can have a conversation and you can be right in that conversation. But that doesn't make it a righteous conversation. It doesn't make it a righteous um, a thing of righteousness that you're discussing, right? But what makes something righteous is when you combine the correctness with the divine, and that's what creates righteous.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, there's things that are legally that are there are things that are legal that not necessarily mean that they're right, right? I mean, it's you know, it's uh, you know, it's legal to cheat on your wife. It's not the right thing to do. And even in a smaller context, if you know from the monitor that the worshipful master has it is legal for a worshipful master to make any motion, second any motion in the lodge. Now, if you run your lodge where every single motion is made by you, the worshipful master, every single time, is that the right thing to do? No, probably not. You know, you would exercise that authority, you know, judiciously when it maybe it calls for it, but ultimately, you know, while it might be legally right, it's not a great way. You know, it's not a great way to run your lodge by constantly making all of the motions and you know basically trying to you know force your you know you know force your will on the lodge or something like that, even though legally you are absolutely allowed to do that. So yeah, it kind of a small example I've used where you know wisdom comes in when things are technically right to do, but not necessarily you know ethically or morally right.
I would say I would say that might be okay, but I wouldn't say it's the right to do, but it's okay to do.
Yeah, I mean, it is well within your authority
It
to make
is,
every
it
single
is, and
motion,
it's
but
okay to do it, but I wouldn't
it
say
is
it's
okay to
right to
do it.
do it.
But if you are the one having to do every single, you've got bigger problems. Like you try as best you can to preside over a lodge. In other words, you're supposed to kind of help mediate and entertain motions. But as it says, I mean, the worshipful master has absolute authority to make any motion, and second any motion and whatever. So anyway.
That's why I was thinking this was going religious, because righteousness and religion sort of go hand in hand,
Right.
rather than right versus wrong.
Right. Well, that's a great example of there's nothing righteous about being right all the time, right? There's nothing divine in squashing the will of the people and trying to get your own way. There's nothing divine about that. So I think that's where it's up to
If the will
us.
of the people is evil, if the will of the people is evil, and there are many nations around the world where the will of the people is pretty evil, maybe they're doing the right thing is to squash that.
Well, who says what's right for them?
That's up for God to judge. Let him sort it
That's
out, or
exactly
her
right.
sort it
And
out.
he will, and he will, and he might do it with a B-52. You never know. But
Let's be clear. The great architect of the universe, because again, coming at it from the Eastern Chinese perspective, there's a yin and yang. Uh, the great architect created both, or
that's exactly right. That's
exactly.
right.
So is the devil wrong in God's eyes? I mean, how do you create something and then say, well, that's wrong? It's if there's a concept of it, if there is a creation of it, it's going to be tough to convince me that it was wrong or it's wrong. It's a moral judgment, and then it's based upon, again, the term righteousness. I don't know. There's different books say different things about righteousness, what's right and what's wrong. One faith says, whatever, marrying a 9-year-old is okay, and another faith might say that's not okay. So it depends where you want to get this righteousness from.
Yeah, and I think
I agree.
that's really the important thing to draw there is righteousness is very subjective. It can be subject to a number of different interpretations. The most common righteous that I feel is righteous indignation, but it's not correct by most people's standards. It's correct according to me because everything should be as it is in Byrontopia. But we're not going to go. We're not going to get into that discussion. Where we're going to go tonight, where I think we're trying to stay tonight, at least with this part of the discussion, right versus righteous. I feel like right is knowing what is correct. Righteous is exhibiting what is correct. One is a noun, right. The other is a verb.
So I actually do have a better example.
That's an interesting thought.
couple years ago, one of the lodges I was a member of had we had convinced them to raise the dues. Right now, in their particular rules and regulations, and I understand this is kind of an anomaly. It has to do with when whoever wrote the rules and regulations basically set them up just like bylaws, to where you have to submit things in writing. It has to lay over. Like there's certain requirements. You can't just make a motion to change the rules and regulations. It's very similar to how bylaws work. So, but we had already gone through that process. Well, there was some consternation with the lodge, with some of the members of the lodge. Ultimately, basically, the general feeling of the majority of the members who were coming to meetings felt like we needed to go back and go and reduce the dues back to where they were, right? I don't agree with that. And when it came time for the vote, those of us that were in support, we're in the minority, right? Okay, if it's a straight up or down vote, we're going to lose, right? However, those that were in favor of it basically were not following what the specific rules and regulations say on how this was supposed to be amended and changed and stuff like that. Now, would I have been right to hold them to basically get the way I wanted it to go done? Yes, because they were wrong. They weren't wrong in what they wanted to do. They were wrong in how they were going about it. I was right. However, I also knew that the general feeling was that they wanted to go back to the old dues. And you know what? The couple of us that were in the right basically guided them and essentially helped them defeat our own point of view. So had I done it what I thought was right, would I would have been technically right. I would have been completely within my rights. I did things the right way. I was holding it to a standard that everybody should be following. But ultimately, I probably would have been in the wrong because I knew that this is not what the lodge wanted, and I could have forced it. I could have forced a change. It would have gone through the end of the year. We would have had to have raised the dues and all that kind of stuff. So, was I right or was I wrong? So, to me, you know what? It was a battle not worth having, and in my mind, we did the right thing by helping those that were not versed in bylaws and rules and regulations and this and that. So, that to me, that was an example of like, yeah, I was in the right, but had I done it that way,
I agree.
I basically would have, basically I would have been in the wrong ethically because I knew.
Was that righteous to do that? Were you righteous?
That's what I'm
Well,
thinking. Is
to me,
I think you were righteous in that.
That's
in
what I'm
the
saying.
way you guided them. That's
once they started guiding it, that's when it became a righteous act. It was no longer a right act, and it became righteous because you were doing what was right in morally and ethically instead of what was right by the letter of the law.
I was helping them because I knew that they were not. They didn't understand what the process were. They just didn't understand why they just couldn't have an up or down vote. Blah, blah, like, and so I said, look, you guys want to do this. This is what needs to happen. This is how this is, and and ultimately, the dues got reduced, and and whatever, I didn't agree with it.
That was the righteous thing to do.
No.
Was it right
hand
for the
grenade in
lodge?
here?
Probably not.
Can I throw a hand grenade in here?
You go right ahead, and then I'm going to read something that someone posted here real quick. Go ahead.
I think Jason, you did 100% the correct thing, 100%. And again, I would agree with you. Dues should be raised, but all I'm going to say is at least you didn't take the God approach and just flood everybody and kill everybody because they didn't understand. They didn't know. You could have just wiped it all out with one flood, got exactly what you wanted, and just started over again.
Well,
everything the way you wanted to do it. See if it worked better the second time.
I read the monitor, and it gave me the authority to invoke, floods and plagues this year. So I may resort to that.
Grenade. I'll be quiet after
Oh
that.
my gosh. Okay, so I'm gonna read this because I really do like it. By Mr. L. Thompson, And thank you for being on the show. And I'm glad you're engaged in what we're talking about. Well, Brother Hill Country also did. He said, then do we consider the Ten Commandments as the tenets, principles to help us to adhere to the established plumb line? We can, but I don't think that those are the only ones. And I think that that's the good example that Jason just gave, is that we can follow the law, but it's not really a law to the T. It's a guideline, right? So um, the law says, you know, thou
Sorry,
shalt
Dennis. You
let,
said it's a guideline.
it is.
I'm gonna
You go right ahead.
dang it.
You can
I
disagree
had the
if you
right
want
word.
to,
I had
because
the right word. Hang on a second. There's a different word that I had. It was right on the tip of my tongue and it's disappeared. The Do we accept the Ten Commandments? Or no, he didn't say accept. What read the bit back from Brother Hill
do
Country
we
again, please.
consider the Ten Commandments as the
Consider.
tenets and principles to help us adhere to the established plumb line, as the
If
to
is
establish the plumb
your
line?
belief, if that is your belief, absolutely, you should. But
Well,
if you have a
that's what I'm
belief that
saying, though,
is
is that you can.
outside of the old commandment or the Old Testament, rather, then you have a different plumb line that you need to adhere to. But the simple truth is, I'm going to say it right out loud. Every one of the plumb lines that are set are all parallel to each other. They're all looking for the same goals, regardless of what your belief system originates from.
Well, but I'm going to throw this out there, that I think that the Ten Commandments are the minimum requirement. That's the minimum requirement.
And
There's
it does say
there,
consider. It says consider.
right, and I do like that. I do like that. Don't get me wrong, uh, Lee. Brother Lee, don't get me wrong. But I think that that is just the starting point. If we make that the tenets and principles, then I think that it leaves too much to yeah, it just leaves too much to guess. But
Man, it's also like having the Bible as the volume of sacred law. It's one of the volumes of sacred law,
exactly,
with which
and
most men
that's the point,
agree.
and
But it
that's
is
the
not
point.
the only one, and it's something to consider. It's a good guide. It's a great guide, but it's not necessarily my volume of sacred law. I tend to lean toward the Gita, but you know, uh, I'll
Well,
consider it.
and I also think that that had to do with a specific people in a specific
Exactly.
circumstance. So that was a very specific time. It's kind of like that. Oh my God, I love this movie. Um, Mel Brooks. The what's
Which
that
one?
movie? What the best one? The best one
The
where they
best one was Blazing Saddles, but I'm probably in
no,
the minority
Blazing
on that
Saddles was good. It was really good. But I like History of the World Part One, and where
one. Okay.
he says he comes down as Moses and says these 15, and then breaks the one tablet and says 10, 10 commandments.
Ten
You know,
Commandments. Yep.
his, but in reality, you know, that I think that that was specific to the people, right? And
Well,
so
it is
it's
specific to the
more,
people, right? It is
yeah,
specific to the people. Freemasonry is based on what the majority of the men prefer, just like with the dues in the lodge. You can't go universally. It's what those men in that lodge, or in America, you know why we have the York Rite and not the Scottish Rite, is because it wasn't the majority. You know, New Orleans lost. There's a few little Scottish Rite craft lodges out there, but in general, American is a Christian nation, and we are dealing with the York Rite. If it was more of a French nation,
I
if the
agree.
French would have taken over back in that day, we would be doing the Scottish Rite Blue Lodge degrees.
Yes, yes. And Lee, like I said before, I don't disagree with you. I just think that it's a broader scope. And that's just my opinion. And that's why we all that's why we're having this discussion to begin with, right? Is because we all do have opinions, and we find the divine somewhere in the middle. We Once we hash through everything, then you can kind of see the little glimmers of the divine in the discussion that kind of peek through, and those truths will make their way to the top. It's kind of like the cream rises to the top. But I wanted to read this one by Mr. L. Thompson. I like it. It says, right versus righteous. Scope. The right thing to do is consequential, the best action for one and their family. The righteous thing to do is to act on divine principles and edict regardless of consequence. And I like that. I really like that. But there
I disagree
again,
with you there. You're going to flood out I disagree, because that's why I stated the question in the beginning. Righteousness, is this based on the Bible? Meaning, like, I disagree with you, so I'm going to flood the world. It's a horrible example.
But if that's the godly thing, if our Creator decides to be our destroyer as well, then that's godly. We just have to accept it. We're not the kingmakers, right?
Then the question is, do I want to be righteous or right? I think I'm going to choose right.
Well, and those are the moral contemplations that we have to have. Those are the battles that we have inside, day in and day out. At least the intelligent men and women out there in the world, those are the battles that we have day in and day out. And that's why I love discussing things like this with my brothers, and just really anyone that loves a great conversation, and especially a delicious glass of scotch. Then we can have that conversation anytime. That's my conversation elixir, I should say. We have somebody saying, how many righteous Muslims are there in North America? I don't know. I bet we probably have a lot. I bet
righteous thing brings in religion into the whole conversation,
right?
Which
right.
makes it complicated.
Right.
Yeah,
Now
that's where
you're
we get
comparing
Drinking
religions.
alcohol. Drinking alcohol is very not righteous. Eating pig, a pork is not right. I mean, it's
if you're Jewish, then it's not righteous. Eating pork, that's anything with hoofed feet, right? Hoofed feet. That
anything with an even number of hooves.
Yeah. All kinds of
or,
laws.
well, toes rather. So, like, cattle are good, horses are bad, pigs are bad. I don't know how that all works out, because whatever.
But when
don't get
all
me
else
going on this one,
fails,
because
eat
I'll step
chicken.
on my
When
Right.
all else
Actually,
fails, eat chicken. Even though they do eat their own crap, eat chicken.
Actually,
please. Go ahead.
I'll chime in on that subject.
Come on, Tom.
Actually, the way the
We're digressing.
law is written is it is any four-legged hooved animal that chews the cud, and that's why the cow is.
There you go.
That's the one thing that they have to chew the cud.
There we have it. Showstopper.
That's okay. It was a right showstopper.
Right.
Yeah.
So
one of the other things that came into my mind too, as soon as you mentioned righteous, Dennis, I thought I dropped back to my, teen years, these decades ago. Righteous was the word you heard on the beach when somebody caught just a righteous tube.
That. Yeah, I know it was
part of the skate
beans.
culture.
Yeah.
Well, it was also part of the skating culture.
It was.
There's a whole lot of different ways we use that word righteous, but when we start talking about morally and ethically using the word righteous, now we run into so many different interpretations of what it is to be A, right, and B, righteous. So there are a lot of, I'm willing to bet if we gave it a little bit of thought, you could come up with with righteous, and I'm going to use iniquitous as its opposite. The same action performed by same people could be termed from the outside both righteous and iniquitous, just depending upon the situation. It's very
Yes.
situational, very subjective.
Yeah, who's on one side of the of the uh, of the firing squad?
What side of whatever argument you want to make?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
That's now one of the things, and Mr. L. Thompson corrected me, which yes, you have that you I definitely did leave that word out. I said the righteous thing is to do an act on divine principles and edict regardless of consequence. I agree. And you said divine, not Judeo-Christian. And I agree with that as well. I think that there are divine truths out there that it doesn't matter what religion you're a part of. There's divine truths, and they stretch across all the faiths. And there's parallels throughout all the faiths, and I think that almost everyone on this panel here right now believes the same thing. Um, a lot of your free thinking men do believe that. Not Brad though. He doesn't think it.
Thoughts. I live in my own world.
No, you don't. You do believe that there's parallels within all the different faiths. We've talked about it.
Parallels, yeah. There are some parallels, but there's a lot of difference within faiths.
Well, there's a lot of differences within religions. I think that well, you're right. Faith and religion can go hand in hand in that uh in that
It's
sentence.
also, I don't know how much all of you know about Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma or Advaita Vedanta. They certainly have a belief in God. The question is, what is God? How do you interpret it?
And that's the big
And
one.
as an Advaita Vedantist myself, I have a feeling my understanding of God is different than a lot of Masons. So, but that's my faith. That's what I believe. I have different Eastern spiritualities built into my brain. I've never gone to church. I've never really read the Bible or studied the Bible. No, I've never worshipped the Bible. I mean, I've read it historically. I've read it for Masonic reasons. I've studied it in a sense, but it's not my book of faith. So I think my religion or my faith, my beliefs, it's different than most. And I don't think it's even parallel. I mean, I don't want to get into like explaining what Sanatana Dharma is or Hinduism is about or Buddhism is about, but it's different. It's definitely different.
Right. Well, I have this belief in what God is that is not a very popular belief. Now you'll hear me say he and stuff like that a lot when I'm talking, just simply because it's easy to have a conversation with people. But I really believe that God is more of an energy, and just the source of energy, and that's what I believe God is, and so it's hard to define. So all I can do is try to study as much as I can to see what aligns with. And I want to read this real quick because it kind of just it touches on how I feel, because it what's going to align me with that light or that energy. Um, the righteous traveler is not the one who never stumbles, but the one who continually reorients himself toward the light. Each step taken in truth becomes another stone laid in the temple of the soul. Man, I love that.
Amen.
I love that.
And I say that as a non-Christian. Amen. That's
right.
there's
Right.
there's big time truth in that. That's capital T truth.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And I think that that's ultimately what we're all doing. And when we're looking at the plumb line, like we started the conversation talking about, that's what we're trying to do, is measure ourselves against that uprightness that 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 will get us back to the source, back to my warm and fuzzy place.
I like it.
Because I think that ultimately we came from there, and we were once so part of God and intertwined with God, that, and in spirit, and we came here, and now we're trying to get back. And then once we finish this part of the journey, then we will become one again with that, and there will be a point of understanding that we're going to have when we pass, and we'll know all the answers to all the things that we contemplated all throughout life. And then we'll forget all those, because our self will fade away as we become one again with the source. I take comfort in that. I'm very pleased with believing that. I don't know. I keep seeing these questions also on here, that who is the original man? Who is the colored man? 2,200 miles across the sands. Those all seem like they're questions that are looking for an answer from a particular faith. I don't know. Who knows who the original man is? All we know is what's written in the books, right? And those books were written by men that were not around when the original man was here. So, to each his own. All right. Have we beaten up this topic enough, or do y'all want to keep going? Is there anything that any of y'all have thought about in the midst of this conversation that you would like to take it in a different direction? You raising your hand, Jason?
No, I'm stretching.
Well, I guess if I can add
Go
anything
ahead.
to it,
You
Dennis,
go
it would
right
just
ahead.
be that the Freemasonry itself. If we want to get out of the deep end of the pool and just go back to the shallow end of the pool just for a minute, keep in mind that all these working tools that we play with and talk about, and discuss and theorize, they're symbolic. It's just symbolic. So when we talk about the compasses or the square or the plumb or the trowel, I mean, we can go off in so many different directions on this, and we can agree to disagree. You know, words like righteousness and faith and experience. Everybody's got different experiences in this world. People who come from different faiths, different parts of the world, they'll never understand someone else's experience. Someone raised in China or India has no idea what it's like growing up in Texas, and vice versa, because the human consciousness, all we know is what you've put into your mind. All you have is your experience. Yes, if you've read many books, you're well read, you're multicultural if you've traveled the world, which as Masons we should travel the world. But symbolically, or all you have is your consciousness, what you know. And it's truly, and I'm not speaking to you directly, just in general,
I know.
it's all ignorant. It's all ignorant because people are ignorant. They think what they know is the answer. And they really have no clue what the other side of the world has done, what it's doing. I was looking up today something about the Bible, and China, they never even knew about China. That there's one word in the Bible where Hebrew it represents Sinen. It represents China. That's it. That is it. There's nothing else in the Bible that discusses China, going back to its origins, its writings. That part of the world only knew, relatively speaking, the conquered world. They didn't know what was going on the other side of the world. So it's if you become well read and you become well traveled, you realize it's ignorance. It's pure ignorance. It's pure. consciousness is what you got.
Now, is
The
it
books you read is what you got.
now is it that they didn't even know, or is it that they
Well, it's not
to
in
the
the Bible.
victor
Let's just
go
say
the
that
spoils?
it's not in the Bible. It's not written down in the books of the Bible. So
Right.
whether they
So
knew it and didn't write it down, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to address it, I don't know.
because it didn't fall into their narrative that they were the first people, right? So if they
They're
showed
certainly not the first people. They're
right,
certainly not the first people,
well,
or the first religion.
well, and that's been proven now. But back then it hadn't been at the time, so maybe they just specifically left them out for a reason because they didn't want the competition.
Well, and the other thing that I the big thing that I heard you saying, Brad, or the thing that stuck in my mind is a phrase that I keep hearing over and over, and I utter it a lot. We can agree to disagree. The operative part of that phrase is can. And I would say that it could also be may. We may agree to disagree. I believe the phrase should be we must, or we shall, or we will agree to disagree because of that very reason, Brad. So many of us are brought up in one or just a half a dozen locations, maybe even a dozen locations within our particular hemisphere. Who are we, based on our experience, to say that 3/4 of the rest of the world doesn't exist? Because we've never seen it, we've never experienced it. We can't make any real valid statements without due diligence and research about what conditions may apply in those various regions of the world that we have not been to. We must, we shall, we will agree because we have to. That's what we're called to do as Masons. We will agree to disagree.
I think it's a beautiful thing. And symbolically speaking, I separate me as Brad or human versus Brad raised to the sublime degree of a master mason. We are traveling men. We are supposed to travel. We are supposed to read. We are supposed to enlighten ourselves. We are supposed to travel east. I'm going to be doing a talk about this pretty soon. We're supposed to go eastward. It's from where the light comes. We are traveling men. We should be exposed to other cultures. We are around the world. There's a good joke, there's a good statement on the widow's sons. The sun never sets on the widow's sons. We are around the world, and we should travel and we should join other nations. In fact, if you want me to just take 2 minutes, because I don't know if you want me to cut me off, you can cut me off or ask me to stop. But I'm doing a lot of research right now on the third degree, when it was invented, who invented it, and Hinduism. Do you know that Mason? Well, first of all, England and France were trading with the East India Company since literally 1600. Before the Rosicrucians, they were traveling east. They were doing business with the East India Company. The first lodge in India was before the third degree, before the Legend of the Craft. So there's a lot to be said about traveling in other countries, other lands, other worlds, learning from other cultures. And it's very bizarre. I don't want to give all my secrets out there, right? But if you take that last syllable of the Three Ruffians and pronounce it, you will come up with what the Scottish Rite would say is the sacred name of God, which is Hindu. It's from the East. It's from Hinduism. It's in our degree work. It's something within Freemasonry. It's within the craft lodges. I don't know if any of you ever sat in the Oriental chair. Where is the Orient? Symbolically, it's there. If you want to see, if you don't want to see it, you don't have to see it. But if you're looking and you travel east and you sit in the Oriental chair and then you return to the West, have you ever traveled? Is it symbolic, or have you actually ever traveled there? Do you understand other cultures? And this is the philosophy of Freemasonry. When you look at that Enlightenment era that happened from the 17th century to the 19th century, That's what it was all about. You know, Albert Pike's was, or America
I don't think
was
that
some
you
of the
have to
first people
literally
to get those
travel
texts in their
somewhere.
hand to read those.
I don't think you have to literally travel somewhere to
I can't hear you,
understand.
Dennis. Your microphone's
Oh,
muted.
shit. Okay. Bear with me.
Can't hear you.
Okay. So now here's where we get into we shall disagree. Because I don't think that what?
Perfect. I said that's nothing
Okay,
wrong
I
with
was going to say
disagreeing.
because I didn't hear you that time. Okay, so it and I don't disagree entirely either. I think that we do gain a lot more perspective when we do travel to other countries and other nations. Hell, even other cities within Texas. Texas has 50 cultures within Texas itself. I mean, you just drive an hour and you're touching another culture. And some of them you
It
might
says
make it out
travel
of,
in
some of
foreign
them you might
lands.
not. But
In our degree work, it says travel in foreign lands.
right. But what I think the ultimate responsibility is, though, and I think the ultimate responsibility is that we are to attempt to educate ourselves on culture, and not so that we can be an authority or so that we can figure it out as far as what they believe or don't believe, because we can go over there and stay there for a year and not live in their shoes and not understand their beliefs and so forth. We can do that. But I think that the ultimate goal is for us to grow this willingness to be open in contemplating their understanding of life. When we have that willingness to comprehend, that shows compassion on our behalf towards them. That is brotherly love and affection. When we are, and somebody wrote it in earlier, they said it's about our purpose. It's about, it's walk your path with purpose. So if we are purposefully trying to understand and comprehend that other brother in front of us, we are extending charity and brotherly love, because we are attempting to understand them on their terms, instead of, and I'm trying very hard not to use woke terms. I'm trying real hard, guys. But it's our job to try to be compassionate to others, and meet upon the level so that we can meet them on their terms, and then we can better understand who they are as a people, because then they're going to be willing to share and discuss with us as well.
Yeah. Can I disagree just a little bit, Dennis, with both what you just said and a little bit what Byron stated about it, a little
Yes,
bit?
you can.
What I'm suggesting is, as Masons, again, separating that as from people, as Masons, when we travel into foreign countries, what we've done historically is open lodges and make Masons. We don't, I agree with Brian. We don't have to understand, or we can disagree with them, human to human, but I'm not referring human to human. We want to set up lodges, which we've done around the world, and we've made them Masons, like we've been made Masons.
I don't think
A
that's the
Mason is
only. I
different
don't
than
think
all
that's
those other religions.
I don't think that's the only thing they mean when they're talking about traveling to foreign countries, Brad. I think you need to read some more books, buddy.
What we've done around the world. There's
You
lodges around
probably
the
you
world, in the
I
Philippines,
know,
in
but I
China,
don't
in
I
Japan.
know, but I don't think that that's the only thing that they mean when they talk about traveling to foreign countries. That's the surface value of what's meant in that phrase, and we can't talk about it on this live show, but one of these days we can talk about it for sure. There are two meanings. There's always two meanings. There's always two meanings.
More than, I would say there's more than two. Yeah,
There
more than
usually
two.
is. There usually is, because it just depends on what well, like we've been talking about, where we come from in life and the experiences that we've had. We're going to take a different meaning away from it. We all have. One of the things I was discussing um, yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? It's Friday. I was talking about um, the cable tow and how it really is an anchor to us because it's our preconceived notions that hold us back. It's our anchor, and it will definitely keep us from getting all the lessons that are out there available to us. And so I believe that we should travel on a physical plane. We should be traveling and learning from as many sources as we can as we walk this earth. We definitely should. And I believe that we all have different experiences based on that, and we have a different understanding of what certain things mean because of those experiences too. Some are a little bit stronger than others. But I also think that with every lesson that we learn, and like you said, there's more than just one other, but I think with every lesson we learn, there's another lesson to be had. And you're right that there's actually a lot of lessons in each one. There's so many different rabbit holes we can go down with each one of the symbols and each each thing that we hear about. But all of that is, if we're doing it for the the reasons a Freemason should be doing it for, with purpose, it should be for the purpose of understanding each other and helping each other have a better understanding of God. Because if God lives, if the Spirit of God is in me, the Spirit of God is in each one of y'all. And the Spirit of God is in the Muslim, he's in the Hindu, he's in whatever the religion, pick your poison, it doesn't matter. But the Spirit of God is in each one of these, is in each person everywhere around the world. And our ultimate purpose is to be able to relate and meet with each other and learn from each other so that we can get a little bit closer to God. Because if we only know, if you guys are the only flavor of God that I ever get while I'm on earth, then I don't know God at all. Because there's billions of other flavors of God out there that I need to try to become accustomed to, or at least try to understand. And if I can't be there, then to read. And if I can't read, then to listen to Audible. If I can't, whatever it takes, man, that's our job. Whatever it takes, we need to educate ourselves on our fellow human beings, because every human being has God within them. I think that's our purpose.
I love it. Good job.
Well, I love you, Brad, and I love our conversations. I like it that you bring a challenge to the table, and every time, and I think that several of y'all do, and I think that's what makes this show so great, and I think that's why people enjoy it and keep coming back and keep watching it, to be honest with you. And Lee, yes, Lee Hill Country's the exactly what I was thinking. He said that I believe we must uh, remain a level of civility when traveling to understand others. I truly believe the same thing. That's that brotherly love and affection that we're extending to other people. That's the real charity in this life, in our lifetime, is that ability to extend um, that that level of restraint on our own beliefs so that we can try to understand someone else's.
Dennis, if I could jump in there again with
Go
that
right ahead.
logic, and I agree with 100% with everything you just said. As Masons circumnavigate the world, as we've done over and over and over again, and encounter other cultures and other religions, even within our own country or America, the native Indian, did we force them to use the volume of sacred law of the average American Mason, or when we went to China, or when we went to uh, any land around the world, there was no forced conversion of their religion. They were able to utilize their volume of sacred law to become raised to the sublime degree of a master mason. That volume of sacred law has been stated many times, should be the book of faith in which most men agree. So depending where you are, if you're on the Indian tribe over there, it might not be the Holy Bible. They're going to use their book, their holy book, and be raised to the sublime degree of master mason. So I think Masons, especially in America, I come across a lot of Masons that they kind of miss that concept a little bit. They that's their answer. That's it. That's the only book. And I'm like, I got the stink eye several times when I'm like, no, that's not the only book. When I was raised, there were 7 volumes of sacred law on the altar. I know in individual lodges you can pick one and that's it. That's fine. No, I got no problem with that. But when you go to the tribe, to the Indian, uh, Native American, or you go to Zen over in Japan over there, they're going to have a different book. And I think
Yes.
as a worldwide fraternity, we need to be more understanding of that, of their culture, of their beliefs. And disagree, fine, disagree all you want. But as Masons, we should come together and be on the level.
Yeah.
And upright and spread the brotherly love. Take your trowel, start spreading that love around.
Yeah, that's part of that. That's part of what I was saying earlier about where we must agree to disagree. That's really where that comes in. We have to agree that we individually do not have a monopoly on capital T truth. We must acknowledge that we don't. We must acknowledge that the truth is greater than any of our individual understandings. It comes to us in pieces, in bits and dribs here and there that allow us to truly find the one great architect of the universe. That's and that guy doesn't live in Vatican City, and he doesn't live in the Temple on the Mount. That guy is all over. He's everywhere. He is everything. She, ooh, them, it, whatever. Pick your pronoun.
Well, how about this? I would love to get this in there, Dennis. How about, let's say we all meet at Guthrie, and I'll meet you there next week. Well, you guys are leaving from Texas, right? And I'm leaving from Illinois. Or I'm just making an example, right? And we get there and we worship in front of that altar. And then you all give me some story about, oh, it's so hot, my tires melted off my thing. I was fighting rattlesnakes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Rattlesnakes, scorpions? I never seen any of this stuff. The heat, the desert, 120 degrees. I don't know what you're talking about. I left with a foot of snow. I'm freezing out here. My car broke down and I almost died freezing to death. And the point I'm making is my experience to meet on the level with you in Guthrie, and your experience to meet on that altar in Guthrie with me, to be Masons together on the level. We could have 2 totally different experiences of what we've been through within our fraternity. And it's yeah, we can disagree, but it's also low. There's just 2 different experiences as well.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
nothing in common in this sense.
For sure.
My journey and your journey.
And y'all can both take them in completely negative ways. And then Jason could, show up, have the same experience that both of y'all had, and say, it's just another Thursday. No big deal. Right?
And bust out the rattlesnake fritters.
Yeah. By the way, I'm glad you made it, Daniel. With you showing up tonight, I wanted to read what Brother Lee Hill Country, Brother Lee from the Hill Country. I'll start saying instead of Lee Hill Country. Brother Lee from the Hill Country said, "Congrats to all the Inner Circle members who have been recently installed as an officer within their lodge. Well done. All the best coming in 26, 27." So I just wanted to throw that out there to you guys. We've got three masters of a lodge for sure. I think we've got at least one treasurer, a secretary, and a junior and a senior warden as well, I think. Yeah, so bunch of leaders in this group. Imagine that.
You're the some of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Spend the time with a bunch of leaders. They're going to be surrounded by leaders. So
That's right. That's right. That's awesome. But I'm really excited. We're having our installation tomorrow, as a matter of fact, tomorrow night. I don't have to be. I'm a carryover as a secretary, but I believe it's important for all of the officers to be installed together, and so I will be there to be installed as well. Plus, they're having some homemade barbecue, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait. It's always
Hey,
a
wait,
good
wait,
day
wait.
when you get a local source barbecue.
There's
that's the
something
best
about
day.
there's something about mercenary motives in our fraternity here, Dennis. Are we being influenced by them? Maybe
Right.
we could absolutely be influenced by those mercenary moments or
That's
motives,
funny.
rather, especially when it concerns barbecue.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Brad Huff is in the house. He made it. He's on the chat with us. Glad you made it. So is Invisible Nobody. I'm glad you made it. It's been a minute, but I'm glad you made it. It was a great talk this last. So now that Daniel's on, it reminds me I need to say something. That last week was just a phenomenal talk on the Inner Circle Esoterica discussion. And we have so many members that they'll tell me, I didn't read the chapter, I didn't want to get lost in the conversation, whatever. Man, you're always a part of the conversation. We all have those experiences in life, and as we're talking along, just like we did right here tonight on this esoteric topic, nobody was prepared. I brought up a topic, it was read out, and everybody had something to contribute, right? So you always have something to contribute. So make sure you make it. And if you're not a member of the Inner Circle group, you're welcome to join. Um, there are certain privileges that come with that, like being able to be on that show for the Inner Circle book club that we're doing with Esoterica right now. And you can also watch those episodes because those aren't visible to the public. We have those discussions on our own. That's just one of the perks for being a member of the Inner Circle. But I thought I'd throw that out there because seems like, golly, we've got all hands on deck right now. Well, I say that I know of a couple of people that aren't with us tonight. I don't see them in the chat, or well, quite a few people actually. We have quite a few Inner Circle members that just watch a lot of times and don't show up. But I know there's several that have been very active here lately that aren't on the chat or in the group tonight. And you're always welcome, and you're always appreciated, as well as all you folks that are brothers and friends and brothers that are on the chat right now. I can't begin to say I know what you're wanting to chat about when you're chatting. I don't always understand what the point is. However, you're always welcome in our discussions. You can always jump in and watch what's going on and be a part of that conversation in the chat. Anybody else got anything now on that topic? Bueller?
I'm just
Are we-
saying
are
a
we
quarter
back
of
to
the
the plumb
guys that
line?
are on right now. Yeah, a quarter of the guys that are on right now don't know what we were talking about.
Are we back to the plumb line or righteousness?
Right.
Or right?
Or both. Or all of the above. So guys, the discussion started tonight with the plumb line. We read a passage from Amos regarding the plumb line, and we started talking about what that means to us. Would any of y'all like to chime in on what you believe the plumb line might mean to you?
I think about the plumb line and it being, are you upright? Are you straight? Are you up and down? Are you vertical? There's so many things like here, in symbolism, but one of those things is like we think about standing upright before God, right? When you roll your shoulders back, when you are happy with yourself and with the people around you, you stand taller, right? And I think that to me is one of the biggest things is like, are you happy with who you are and who you are in the company of who you are with? And, for me tonight was like, hey, it's date night with the wife, and got home and it's like, all right, I can jump on here for a minute. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to stand with these guys. Dennis, you brought it up. There's a bunch of leaders. A lot of people who are working in their lodge at a large level to be leaders, and that's because of the culture that's been built by Masonic Improvement. Is this is what we want to see. We want it to be moving forward. Byron and I were part of a discussion yesterday at a lodge that talked about, are we in the is the tree needing a pruning? Is it needing to, cut out the dead branches so the new growth can come in and grow and flourish? Are we planting the seeds of the trees that we will never see the shade of? Or are we just in the shade of that tree? Or is that tree needing some pruning and cleaning up so that way it can reflourish and continue to grow and be bigger, and then will still provide shade? Because the seeds were planted long ago, but are they going to continue? But that also thinks about the plum. Is it upright? Is it able to stand up on its own? Is it straight? So that way the pressure if pressure comes down from the top, it comes down and goes to the firm foundation, the foundation that we're rooted upon, which was also part of that discussion yesterday. Sorry to the folks that weren't there at that discussion. We'll invite you in September when we do it again.
That's awesome that you bring up enjoyment, and because there is enjoyment and balance, and we do feel more prominent and stable when we find that balance, and we find enjoyment through that. And you're right. When you're too heavy on one side or too heavy on the other side, then the tree's leaning, and it puts undue stress um, on the foundation. And yeah, that's awesome. That was a great last minute throw in. That was awesome. Because we
You throw one
we
more in
hadn't
there.
said that at all. We hadn't talked about that at all, and that was just a perfect throw in right at the end.
Don't give me a microphone in a good time, Dennis. That's open forum and a microphone. I'll just go off.
What's really interesting though, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the what are those, the red pines in California, those extremely tall trees in California. That is that what they are? The
redwoods that are out there.
Yeah,
redwoods, sequoia.
The
yeah.
sequoia.
Well, and the sequoia are the same way as well. Yeah. So they're extremely tall, straight trees, but they have very shallow roots. But the root system is long and stretched. One of y'all was talking about this just the other day, and they're intertwined, and they help stabilize all the trees. So was it with y'all that I got this from the other day? Oh my goodness. It must have been
It wasn't me, I promise.
It was an epiphany.
I don't know about pine trees, Dennis, but that's how oaks are put together. Pine
Well,
tree's got a very long, deep taproot.
well,
Pine tree.
the redwoods though in California are different though. Those big ones, those huge monstrosities, they have very shallow roots, but they expand out hundreds of feet um, underneath. So they're only a few feet deep, but they expand out hundreds of feet. You know, as much as they are tall, they're just about that far wide, and they're all intertwined, a lot like a sequoia tree. They're all the roots are intertwined, and that's where they get their stability from. So when the wind blows with heavy winds or bad weather coming in from the west coast, um, as if they ever had bad weather. But when they get the bad weather from the west coast, you know, they don't fall down because of that stabilizing root system. And I was thinking about that while Daniel was talking, and I'm thinking, man, that's Freemasonry in its finest. We stand upright in enjoyment and as men and Masons, strong and secure in who we are, because we have the root system, the foundation. Because we're all tied together, we are stronger as men and individual human beings. If it wasn't for you guys, I would not be near the man I am today. So, you know, I'm grateful for all of y'all, as well as all everyone online. The Hoff, buddy, I hadn't seen you in a while, and I do miss you, and I'm glad you got to have a date night with your wife. She deserves it too, because I know you're working hard this season. 'Tis the season to make your money, right? So I'm just glad you were able to show up tonight. I get it that you're exhausted, but without, you know, men who don't have the root system that we have a much more difficult time in life than men with a good root system of other men. You know, that's a simple fact. You know, when the in in a lot of tribes, the men will have their own ritualistic ceremonies and things like that, as you know, their rites of passage, becoming a man and whatnot. And it's taking you from the point of being under your mother's wing, where everything is done for you, to being a man upright with your fellow men, and you now have that new support system that's going to teach you how to be a man, how to be a better man. And I think the same holds true with Freemasonry, that it's because of the challenging discussions that we can have with each other over these thoughts on well, on everyday life, matters of the lodge, on deity, on um, on philosophy. I mean, there's, you name it, we can talk about it, and we become better, because we do have that unique experience of being a man that will help and benefit other men. So I'm glad that I have all you guys here, and I'm glad everyone's in the chat as well. Don't get me wrong, y'all are all important too. Y'all bring a lot to the game. I love reading what y'all have to say as well.
I got something else on the plum.
Go right ahead.
I was thinking, in our lodge, there's one point. You can correct me if I'm wrong, if there's another point. There's one point when everyone is standing erect as a plum line.
Yes.
And it's on the level, and it's we meet, act, and part. And I think that's the only time where everybody is upright. Think about it, right? Somebody's always sitting down for the most part.
Almost, yeah.
But
You're
if not,
right.
there's for sure there's one time
But
where
that's the one
everybody
time.
is.
That's the one time it's done with purpose, for a specific reason, that you need to have everyone. Yes.
Everyone.
Yes.
And on the level.
Yes.
There you go.
That's an awesome thought.
Something else that came to mind as you were talking about right after Daniel got here, talking about installations and all that, is in our another place in our Texas Monitor. They charge the worshipful master with several different things, and one of them is the line. And I just real read it again. The line teaches us the criterion of moral rectitude, to avoid dissimulation in conversation and action, and to direct our steps to the path which leads to immorality, or immortality. And I had to look up that word dissimulation to see exactly what they were talking about on that. And that is intentionally concealing or disguising your true thoughts, feelings, or character under false appearance. So we want to avoid dissimulation in conversation and action. And no, it's not just the thoughts, but the action, doing the right thing is the goal. And the worshipful master is charged with um, exhibiting that criterion of moral rectitude um, from our monitorial installation program as well. Just something else that comes direct out of that program. And I think, that has one face value around that, but like we've been talking all night, there's so many more levels to a lot of these symbols that we really look at and dig into as you get more and more into that. But it kind of falls back into everything that we've mentioned, talking about the morality, the line, the criteria of it being that is what was established by those, as Byron so eloquently put, capital T truths, the universal understandings. That's our benchmark. That's what we're set. That's where we should be.
Sure. And what comes to mind when I think about disassimilate is transparency. One of the things that I've seen men with, and I'll say good men. I've seen good men with good thoughts on what they believed was right for the lodge do things behind closed doors, and it tore apart the lodge because they tried to make decisions for other people instead of letting the form of democracy do its thing. And I think that, of course, we don't have to tell everybody what we're thinking all the time like I do. And that can get you in trouble. But it's you certainly also don't need to be one of those guys that front facing, you're one way, and then uh, behind everybody's back you're kind of conniving to get what you want, to try to manipulate the system. And I think that's what disassimilate means in that scenario is, um, try to keep yourself from being that manipulative type leader and be more of an open leader, using divine truth and as your guidance, morality and moral and ethical virtues as your guide. I could be wrong. I've been known to pull crap out of my ass in the past, and it just wasn't there.
It made sense to me.
Oh, whoa, Dennis, this is a recorded line. Hold on. Don't admit to that stuff on a recorded line.
Right?
Apologies, whoever spoke over.
Oh, and it's being transcribed. You're absolutely hosed.
Oh man. That's all right. If they hadn't kicked me out yet, they probably aren't going to.
Give them time; they'll find you.
I know. Just give them time.
I can jump in on the plumb line real quick.
Yeah, go right ahead. Please do.
I haven't made too many stone walls, but I've made a couple. And the plumb line comes in real handy when you got stones that aren't perfectly flat on the top and the bottom. because then your level isn't quite telling you, because it's not supposed to be level on the top because it's not flat on one side. So then you got to have that second tool to make sure if you're using stones that aren't perfect on all sides, which in real life, let's face it, we have the ideal of the perfect stone, but in real life there is no, you know, I mean, it depends what level of metaphor you're talking about. But in real life, a lot of stones have rough edges and they're slanted different ways. And so that plumb, and the other thing that is the taller you get, the less you want to trust your eye because, stonework is in layers. So you could do a few layers and you can just eyeball it and it won't be a big deal. But if you're trying to make like a cathedral, it makes a lot of difference. It might look like it's only a little bit ways off with your square when you square it up. You're like, it's close enough for a Tuesday. But then when you're building something tall, close enough for a Tuesday is not going to cut it. You really need to get that line going. So for me at least, when you're dealing with rough stones, and two, when you're actually going somewhere tall, that's when you really got to make sure that you got that line, dropping down from heaven, that's telling you how far you're switching. Um, that's kind of because the level is like it is kind of the equality, and it's sort of that horizontal space that's managed. But there's a part of architecture that's reaching up towards the heavens, and that's when it makes a big difference. If you're just off a little bit and each layer, then all of a sudden at the 24th layer, you're off a lot. So, I'm just going with the metaphor, kind of off of what Daniel was saying, but even a little bit more literal to the operative side of things.
Yeah, but that helps people to tie things in, and man, that's a great example. I can't tell you how many times I've I've run across that very thing, and I can't tell you how many houses here in Goliad, Texas, this town that's a couple of 100 years old, that they're the houses look like cartoon houses. You empty all the furniture and you notice a lot of the door frames are like this and and like this and
They look like something out of Beetlejuice.
yes, exactly, exactly. It's so funny. It's so funny
Don't
that
say
you
that
say
3 times.
That's square enough for a Friday,
yeah,
or maybe a hungover Monday.
yeah. That's usually how it begins. That is a great
Yeah,
example.
I like the way you put that, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, because like think about the Tower of Pisa, right? If you were to go each level brick by brick, stone by stone with the Tower of Pisa, and you're just looking at the levels just like this, yeah, they're exactly straight up and down with each other. I mean, they are square, they are all about it. But then you put that plumb line on the top of the building, and you notice that you're yeah 50 feet off.
But they
Dangling
didn't they
all there
didn't
by
build it
itself.
like that.
Dangling all there all by itself. Do what?
They didn't build that on a Friday.
Hey.
They built it straight up. But wasn't it a foundation issue that caused that?
Yes, I was just making
Okay,
a joke.
Underground river or something.
Yeah, I was
something
just
I don't
making a
know.
joke. That's all.
But that's a good joke. But I was like, nah, wait a minute, they didn't do that on
No,
purpose.
no. They did not do that. That's a lie. Don't say it. I'm fake news. Catch me in a lie
Thank you,
on YouTube channel. Now I'm gonna be chastised for life. Everybody's gonna get hung up just on that. That's gonna
You're
be
gonna
the
get
only
burned.
takeaway for the night, right?
Yep,
Hey,
burned at the stake. You are.
everybody in the comments, go down there and tell Dennis how wrong he is, so he can up the engagement on the YouTube channel. And while you're
Right.
down there, double click the subscribe button so you make sure you unsubscribe.
Oh
You know,
my
if
god.
you're subscribed, double click the subscribe button because you'll unsubscribe and reback subscribe. So
These opinions do not represent any Grand Lodge. It's just
exactly. Exactly.
and if you want to tell Dennis he's wrong to his face, join the inner circle so you can come on these and tell him to his face he's wrong.
That's exactly right. You want your chance? You got to pay to play, buddy. You got to pay to play. All
Let me
these
bail you out
brothers,
a little bit.
all these brothers
I gotta
get to enjoy that simple pleasure of telling me when I'm wrong.
let me bail you out of this one. I can get you out of this one. If you type in the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Niles, Illinois, they built a replicate, and on purpose they did that. So
Yes. Yes.
I love it.
just say that's the one you're referring to. The one
That's
in Niles,
exactly
Illinois.
right. That's I have not
That way you're
traveled.
right.
I have not traveled to Italy, so of course it was the one in the U.S. that I'm talking about. That is funny.
God, I love you guys. Y'all are so good for me.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
That
No,
was a good one.
I really needed this intellectual exercise, and I really needed the belly laughs tonight. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. Brothers, we're at about that time now that it's time to start talking about start wrapping this up and doing our final thoughts. And if any of y'all have final thoughts in the chat right now, feel free to type it out, and I will read it, so that everybody can hear what your final thoughts are as well. There's been some great
Make sure you read out
discussion
the
tonight.
ugly ones too.
I will read out the ugly ones too, especially if they pertain to you. But
Okay.
But yes, if you want to type something in, then I will definitely read them for you. So
Just as an aside,
go ahead.
can we maybe one time some year or so down the road do a like mean comment version of the show, kind of like mean tweets, and read our own, the ones directed at us? That'd be fun.
Man.
Just saying.
Yeah, that might be a good one. We just had our book night this last week, and I want to do one more live with just the inner circle, but I think after that one, oh wait, let me see what date that'll be, because I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling here at the end of this month and next month. Let's see, this weekend and next weekend. Yeah, so yeah, that'll be right before I start my heavy traveling. So next Sunday, we'll do our regular live like this. But for all you guys that are out there in the chat, the Sunday after that, we're going to do another all-in live. My first one that I did, that we ever did, it kind of tanked because I ended up having to work that weekend, and so we weren't able to have it. And then we tried to do it the next weekend, but I didn't really advertise it well enough because during that time I was really busy at work, and I couldn't predict that I was going to be there. So I would like to say that I will be here 2 Sundays from now for sure, because it's going to be right before we start traveling a lot. We're going to be traveling to, starting that week, we're going to, is that the week?
The 26th.
Oh, actually, it's the week after that we start. Well, on the 30th, I'll be going to Bryan. That'll be one of the festive boards that I'll be at, and then the next week we're gonna take a little vacation in Galveston for half the week, and then we're gonna be up in North Dallas the second half of the week for another festive board. So Daniel, I'll be looking forward to seeing you up there. But anyways, so in 2 weeks from today, I want to have another all-in Masonic Improvement Live. And then that way, all of you folks that are in the chat, I'm going to just put the link out there to our regular Facebook page, not the Inner Circle page. I'm going to do it to the regular Facebook page so that anybody and everybody can jump on the live if they want to, and then that way you'll have your 2 seconds of fame and be able to introduce yourself, where you're from, and things like that. And I didn't even see Les Montgomery at the very beginning, all the way from West Texas. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you're still there. I hope we didn't lose you. So, anyways, we're going to go into final thoughts, and any of you brothers that want to chat final thoughts, please do. I've enjoyed all your thoughts tonight. We've had some really deep ones come out of the chat tonight, and I am really grateful for those, because they fully contributed to the conversation for sure. So Brad, you're in my upper left hand corner tonight, so you get to start the final thoughts off tonight.
I guess I'm going to agree with Byron there about it. Just I really needed this today. It was really a great experience, and it's always fun being on here. I mean, I love being on here. Some days I'm a little tired. 8 o'clock tonight, I was very tired, and now I'm wired. I'm very ecstatic. So you definitely picked up my spirits. It was a good talk. It was a great. I don't know. I mean, it's always good. I just really enjoy being on here. And as always, Dennis, thank you for putting this on and being there all the time and doing it as often as you do. So that's pretty much my final thought. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to know my Texas brothers, and yeah, always enjoy sharing stories with you guys.
Agreed. I feel the same way. Brother Atcher, you started off
Yeah,
strong, and
just
then
gonna.
you just stopped and just listened for the whole rest of the show. What happened with you?
Yeah, I just gotta. I got some family stuff going on, taking care of business over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm sorry.
no, it's all good. It's this is just like you said. This is busy season with Freemasonry, so it's always great to be able to take the time to come in um and get recharged. Refill those batteries. Just I guess about a week and a half ago, I was elected and installed as vice president of our MWSA. And, this
Very
upcoming
nice.
week is our DMLA State Conclave. We're going to be hosting that in Beaumont this year, so I'll be attending that as an advisor with our local chapter. And then Saturday of Conclave, I'm going to be sneaking away to go get installed as senior warden of my local lodge. And then it's just, one thing after another. And I got about 4 or 5 more weeks now, I think. I've got a thing on my calendar. I know Brad was talking about it earlier. The New Orleans lodges practicing the Scottish Rite. They're Etoile Polaire #1 in
Yes.
Louisiana is going to be doing a Master Mason's degree in August. So I've got an email in with our Grand Lodge to get a letter of good standing to head over there for that. I'm really interested in
Oh,
that.
what date is that on?
It's on a Thursday, I think the 6th. It's coming up really fast.
Oh, I'll
Um,
be up in Dallas. Never mind.
yeah.
The 6th of August.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see what I can do.
I know it's coming up real fast. I just saw it on their website. They post all their degrees on their website.
What
Uh,
city?
New Orleans.
Okay. Thank you.
New Orleans.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do my best to travel over there for that, pending my letter of good standing and all that other stuff. But it's just one of those things that this time of year, like I said, is super busy. Great to recharge. Great topic. Great way to to just be able to talk about everything and really um, you know think, right. Knowledge is obtained by degrees, but wisdom comes from contemplation, and being able to think and talk and really get that, it helps to contemplate um, and practice our discourse here. So I do appreciate it, and that's what I got. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice. Nice. Michael.
Hey, sorry I was late this evening, guys.
That's all right.
I love it. The conversations on the tools. That's always a topic that I get behind. Yeah, I was just gonna add that that the plumb line is really about getting out into the field too. For me, I mean the compass is really about the drafting up of the designs when it comes to the architectural process. And you know, you don't really need a plumb line when you're just working with a pen and paper. You need that when you're out there stacking rocks. And the other thing that's coming up for me is that it it really is what to echo what Brother Dutton was saying about the uprightness. And for me, that's about aligning with the grand architect, you know, on a spiritual level, because that's where ultimately that's where that's dropping down from. And you know, as someone else was saying, every tradition's got their own volume and their own way. It could be like a sage, it could be the Buddha, it could be Jesus, it could be God. But you know, there's always a grand architect, and that's where the alignment of oneself, um, for me at least, is what I'm thinking about and where my mind is going. So anyway, I'm sorry I was late. I really enjoyed everybody's contributions when I got on. I'm looking forward to logging in tomorrow and hearing the beginning of the conversation.
Nice. Nice. All right, Byron, what you got?
Well, again, gratitude. That's what I've got a lot of right now. Just gratitude. Excuse me. Gratitude that I have a place like this to come on Sunday night to get to interact with brothers, not just not just Brother Dutton who and Brother Strasbaugh who has left, who are both officers in my lodge, but to have the opportunity to kind of work that one-armed guy who's rowing around in my head, that one last brain cell, and get him some exercise, and maybe get some more of them to pop in and start doing their job too. We're we're not always all with it. We're always trying to be with it. And Sunday nights are my time to get with it again, get rid of all the nonsense that came in the week prior, recharge, and get ready to get out there and take on the world again, because it's what I do. But as far as our conversation tonight, I love the conversation of the plumb line, and frankly, I had never given it any real thought until tonight.
Awesome.
And I'm grateful and thankful that that you brought it up, and that it was the basis for our conversation tonight. Obviously, we ranged pretty wide rather. Hey Zach, uh, we went a little nuts and got more than a little off topic from time to time, but it was great fun. I enjoyed it, and thank y'all.
Nice. Nice. Glad you made it for sure. And that it's sad, but at the same time, it makes me happy. It's a double-edged sword that you said that you hadn't thought about it a whole lot, but you're right. Most of us will think about it when we're in the middle of a degree. We'll hear a piece of a point of reference or something, and we'll say, oh, and then we'll start thinking about it for a few minutes, and then that moment's gone because we're on to something else in the degree or whatever, and that that thought, it surpasses us, and so I'm glad that it gave you a point of pause and contemplation tonight. I really am. That was my hope in doing this tonight. Just that one response was all I needed validate what happened tonight, because we talk so often about the benefits of being good leaders and living with purpose and of course utilizing these thoughts and contemplations in becoming the best kind of leaders we can be for the betterment of all. And but we don't put as much emphasis on the actual items that I'd like to as much. And so I'm going to start doing that. I think that we're going to have to find some balance in this group, and not only talk about the admin, but also talk about the stuff that helps us become good administrators, right? And I think that's being able to identify and be conscious. And I feel like Brick with that one show called The Middle. Do y'all remember that? He would always say a word, and then he'd say like consciousness, and then he'd go. I feel like that's the one part that I wish that I had brought into the conversation tonight, because the reason we talk about these things is so that the things we talk about on the conscious level can become part of our subconscious. And so when we're acting out in our several stations and places in life, then it just becomes second nature for us to utilize the tools given, right? Brother Dutton.
Oh, well, I think I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll try and keep them brief
No,
tonight.
please go right ahead, because we miss hearing from you tonight. So you just go right ahead.
Well, I'm glad to be on tonight. Glad to make it, even if I was late. As many others have said, this is what wonderful intentional Freemasonry looks like, even if we're in a virtual setting. It's always great to be together in person, to have the energy of the room in person, but this is also great to be able to join together, have the open conversation and free flow of thought and intention with each other as well. And I just, again, I would just reinforce the idea of this is amazing that we're able to do this, that we're able to come together and talk. And there's the names in the chat, the YouTube chat, and here on the inner circle, it's like, oh, that person, like I know him. It's always great to see those friends and brothers who are there on the Sunday night chats and have that opportunity to do that. So thank you again, Dennis, for continuing this on and continuing the mantle of Masonic improvement and continuing the idea of not only we need to do intentional Freemasonry, we need to be intentional with how we run the lodge, but how we also talk about esoterics and the ideas and the free exchange of ideas and challenging each other's ideas to think even deeper. So thank you for doing that. So with gratitude and love, that's all for me tonight.
Thank you. We love you right back, for sure. And we'll get to Zachary here in just a second. I'm going to read this final thought from Brother Lee. He's in the hill countries in the hill country near Austin. My final thought: may this group always provide an environment for civil discourse and providing a place for open, respectful dialogue. And my brother, you hit it on the head. I believe that's where true peace and harmony comes from, when brothers get together and purposefully look for the good and understanding in the good in each other as we talk about these hard topics that the rest of the world simply would not be able to have. There is a lot of people that just would not be able to have these conversations, and they definitely wouldn't be able to tell each other, no, I don't agree with that. This is what I believe. They, and still walk away with brothers.
And if you believe something different, you're wrong.
Right. But so in a polarized world, it's nice to find balance and harmony in this setting, with our brothers, because we're not all from the same place, and we don't all have the same experiences, but we all get together and we talk about these, and talk about and contemplate these different thoughts, and man, for me, that is the symphony of life right there. That's the symphony of life. Brother Zach Haston, you came in at the end tonight. I wish you had made it a little bit earlier, but I'd still like to hear if you have any thoughts on the plumb line before we started out the show, and Brother Atcher read a passage from Scripture that talks about the plumb line with where God is talking to Amos, and we just decided to take it from there and see what everybody thought, since that just happens to be one of the symbols that we talk about in Freemasonry as well. So, what are your thoughts on
plumb line? Obviously, the plumb line is one of the most important symbols we got.
Yes.
We talk about walking uprightly. You said you read a passage. I can't go into too much here, but I think I can at least say that the last words that you hear as you pass the east and head towards the south on that really kind of hit pretty hard. You can think about what the last line of that is. And immediately after saying that, we really start the philosophical degree. And we get into liberal arts and sciences and all those kinds of good things, which are all back to plumb line. So, yeah, I don't know what all you guys have been saying, and I'm probably repeating some of it right there. But yeah, it's a striking. There's not many times in Masonry that something hits you that hard as you're passing the east. But they definitely level it on you on that one.
For sure. And we hadn't talked so much about the liberal arts and sciences, but that is an excellent point, that we to better understand godliness, we have to some degree be aware of and study or contemplate the liberal arts and sciences that prove these. And what we did talk about in tonight was these certain truths that prove divine, because they, no matter how you slice it up, it's a truth, and there's just no getting around it. And so that can only be divine when it comes down to that. And when we study the liberal arts and sciences, what we're doing is we're training our intellect to notice and witness the divine, in my opinion. I think that's part of our job, is to strengthen our intellect so that when we come across it, we'll recognize it. And it's not just on Scripture or anything like that, but that's part of it, of course, but also on the just everything around us in this world, because there's certain godly truths in everything around us.
Right. You're not going to catch most of them if you don't study and think about them. So, yes. There's a reason that we focus on, by a virtuous education in the blessing of Almighty God. And the whole, boy, I'm having to watch what I say here on.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, that's why we just read that scripture and started from there instead of talking too much about it, because it's tough.
Yeah, you get into the moral advantages of geometry, and all of those things come right back to it starts with a plumb line. We're going to start here. You lower the plumb line, it's going to show every defect in that wall, every bit of bulging in the wrong direction, everything that's not plumb is going to show straight up. The one holding it in this case is going to pretty strict.
Yes. That's that. What's funny is that that's exactly what Mike came on and said when he came on a little bit late as well, and he immediately went to that. He said, "Look, you stand up at the top of that structure and you drop that plumb line, and you're gonna know. You can be eyeballing it all the way, and it looks good. You look good until you drop that plumb line, and then you're gonna know."
It's a good measuring stick.
Yes. That's the one that's whipped me pretty good several times over. Well, with that being said, I'm going to close the live portion of this show tonight. Again, for everyone out there that has participated in the chat, thank you so much. In 2 weeks, we're going to have another one of those. What did I call it?
Can we break Zoom?
Yes, that was one of the things that I said. Let's try and break Zoom. We're going to have an all-in night for the live, so that everybody that wants to be a part, they can be a part. I'm going to post the Zoom link on the regular Facebook page for Masonic Improvement, and then all of you guys can jump on and we can see and we can introduce you, or you can introduce yourself, and we can have a conversation in a couple of weeks. Next week we're going to have another regular live because we did just come off of the bye week of having our esoterica discussion, chapter 5, which was the 47th problem of Euclid, which was an amazing chapter. If you're not an Inner Circle member, that's a good reason to join right there, just so that you can watch that episode, because it was a good one. And so, and that's only open to Inner Circle members, those discussions. But anyways, that being said, I'm going to keep our chat going just for a few more minutes after I close this thing out. But all of you friends and brothers out there that contribute to the success of this show, whether it be in your thoughts, prayers, conversation, and or financial support, we certainly appreciate you. And as always, keep it